Oh, hi, everybody. My name's Ezra Levant. It's September 18th, and welcome to our daily live stream chat. It's a YouTube super chat, which means that you can make a comment in the right-hand side of the screen. And if you want to make your chat super, and who doesn't, throw a few bucks behind it or whatever currency you deal in, and it makes it brightly covered. And I do my best to read every super chat, and we have some regulars. It's like an ongoing banter. We like it because YouTube actually shares 70% of the super chat revenue with us, which is good because they demonetize 2/3 of our videos. And those thirds that they do monetize, it's typically at a lower than commercial rate. I like to talk about things informally on this show. I'm here Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. My friends Sheila Gunn, Reed, David Menzies are here Tuesday, Thursdays. Andrew Chapato sometimes subs in. Kian Bexley once or twice too. I have a formal monologue that I do every night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Today I'm going to talk about the looming by-election, or is it a general election? A couple of Toronto ridings opening up, including Toronto Centre, where the disgraced Bill Morneau slunk out the back door. Marcy Ian, the CTV newsreader, quit CTV to run for the Liberals. That's really not a career change, though, is it? And I'll give you some details about that. But there's some things I like to just show and talk about unscripted. I like to go through videos and things I find on Twitter, things I find on the internet, don't have time to make in a whole produced video. There's a lot of strange things going on out there. I want to show you this very strange clip from Fox News. I like Fox News. There's still some amazing things on Fox News. Tucker Carlson is the best broadcaster in North America. Smart, well-researched, articulates the blue-collar Republican America First line better than anyone else, sometimes better than the president. And yet, they're wobbly in some areas. Take a look at this. Newt Gingrich, very scholarly man, a professor, actually. I like Newt, to listen to him. He had his strengths and weaknesses as a legislator. He was the Speaker of the House for a while. But he's very thoughtful, and any TV panel would be lucky to have him. He's very reasonable, too. He's not a wild man. So to have a man of his intellect on a panel, and he just says something that is not controversial, and holy cow, did they get really weird. Take a look at this.
Destroyed by this violence.
Yeah, it's so true. They represent everybody, right? Speaker Gingrich, I know you have a final thought for us.
Yeah, look, the number one problem in almost all these cities is George Soros elected left-wing, anti-police, pro-criminal district attorneys who refuse to keep people locked up. Just yesterday, they put somebody back on the street who's wanted for 2 different murders in New York City. You cannot solve this problem, and both Harris and Biden have talked very proudly about what they call progressive district attorneys. Progressive district attorneys are anti-police, pro-criminal, and overwhelmingly elected with George Soros' money, and they're a major cause of the violence we're seeing because they keep putting the violent criminals back on the street.
I'm not sure we need to bring George Soros into this.
I was going to say you get the last word, Speaker.
He paid for it. I mean, why can't we discuss the fact that millions of dollars he spent?
I agree with Melissa. George Soros doesn't need to be a part of this conversation.
Okay. So it's verboten.
All right, we're going to. Okay, we're going to move on. A historic day at the White House. We covered it from stem to stem.
I wonder what instructions she was getting in her earpiece when she just said, she was quiet for a minute and said, okay, we're going to move on. Hey, Justin, can you Google George Soros district attorneys? Because it is not a matter of opinion whether or not George Soros, over the last decade, has poured tens of millions of dollars into a very specific and particular project, namely to take over the district attorneys' roles in various states around the United States, to do things like in some jurisdictions, they will not prosecute an assault on a police officer. That sounds insane, but Soros, the LA Times, for example, had a big piece on it. I think the New York Times did too. It's not even a controversy. He brags about it. I'm sure we could go to the Open Societies Foundation's website and find it, but if you just Google George Soros District Attorney's Campaign, let me know if you need help to find it. Yeah, Soros adds intrigue and $800,000 to DA race, backing progressive. That's just one story there. That's just one. But I tell you that he had an entire America-wide campaign. Keep poking around if you don't mind to find it, because I just want to prove that it wasn't just one-offs here and there. Soros is no dummy. He also has a Secretary of State campaign for different states that he's been working on for years. And that goes to voting rules. Crime spikes as Soros-funded DAs take charge. They're not progressive, they're rogue. Let's read a little bit of this. So this is not controversial. This is not a rumor or a conspiracy theory. Billionaire Democrat donor George Soros bankrolled the successful campaigns of a new crop of district attorneys who now preside over big cities with skyrocketing crime. Soros-backed DAs in Philadelphia, St. Louis, San Francisco, and other cities have fired scores of experienced prosecutors and, as promised, stopped prosecuting low-level quality-of-life crimes such as disorderly conduct, vagrancy, and loitering. Their laissez-faire criminal justice philosophy bucks the get tough, broken windows approach made famous by then New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Put into practice, New York and other metropolises saw dramatic crime reductions throughout the 90s. Those days are long gone. Can we find something that sort of gives us a dollar amount here, or an idea of the scale here? And it's been going on for many years. It's just we're seeing the fruits of it. Refusing to prosecute at all. So police arrest someone, bring him into the jail, they're booked, but then they go to first appearance. Yes, Soros aims, what's the headline, what's the news source there? Capital Research Center. Soros aims to transform the justice system by funding DA races. Let's read a little bit here. Since 2015, he has spent more than $17 million on district attorney and other local races in swing states such as Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Arizona, pardon me, but also large predominantly left of center states, California and New York. He dropped $2 million in a single sheriff race in Maricopa County, Arizona, helping progressive candidate Paul Benzone win the election over Joe Arpaio, a very famous race. He's given millions of dollars in grants to candidates in several other counties as well. So what have we shown? Like 3 different... Oh, the effort has a clear motive spelled out in a 2014 press release. Oh, there you go. Soros' Open Society Foundations contributed $50 million to the ACLU campaign against jailing people, part of their smart justice campaign. So the ACLU, this is not a secret. This is an excellent link you have here because it's got all the facts here. Soros is not the only billionaire who contributes to elections in support of progressive or conservative candidates. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, yeah, look at that one. After Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance declined to prosecute Harvey Weinstein, and it was discovered that Weinstein's legal team had funded Vance's campaign, state legislators discussed whether there should be restrictions on funding. Well, and that's something that Americans and Brits don't quite understand. They elect their top prosecutors down there. You'd be thinking, how does money and campaigns have anything to do with the administration of law? In America, it's democratized, which means it's commercialized. I suppose it is in Canada too, but it's just the prime minister or the premier of a province who would make each decision. In the US, you can literally elect your prosecutors, and they run on platforms of defund the police, don't prosecute assaults on police. So can you play that Fox clip of Newt again? So I've just shown you, thank you, Justin, for finding them, detailed specific evidence incredible media and research sites. It's even ridiculous to say, I swear this is true. It's not a secret. Like, this is not a secret. Before you do, could you go to Open Societies, the Open Societies website? George Soros is not sneaky. I mean, I'm sure he is in some ways, but he's a little bit boastful, as most people with God complexes. Yeah, Open Society Foundations. The Open Society Foundations work to build vibrant and inclusive democracies whose governments are accountable to their citizens. And just scroll down a bit. How we work. Every year, the Open Society Foundations give thousands of grants to groups and individuals. Total expenditures, $16.8 billion. 2020 budget, $1.2 billion. Total grants awarded, 50,000. What we do. The Open Society Foundations are active in more than 120 countries around the world, including Canada, obviously. Our national and regional foundations. So this is Soros's, in fact, can you find a link to Soros on here? Journalism, yeah. Click on that for a second, it's terrifying. Independent journalism, yeah, if Soros is funding you. So $25.8 million, you can buy an awful lot of journalists for $25 million. Click on the Americas there. I wonder if, is Canada on there? I see maybe global, I don't know, to be allocated. Don't worry about it. But can you go back to, somewhere on this page, and I know this because I've spent some time, go to who we are. Go to who we are. George Soros, right there. Founder and chair. Under George Soros' leadership, the Open Societies Foundation support individuals, blah, blah, blah. Scroll down a bit. So they talk about it. They talk about, they have a Baudelarized history of him. Scroll down a bit more. They talk about how much of his money he gave away. Let's see if we can find that. Highlights of the foundation, 79, 91. Yeah, there we go. In 2017, the Open Society Foundation announced that Soros had transferred $18 billion of his fortune towards funding the future work of the foundations, bringing his total giving to the foundations since 1984 to over $32 billion. And I say that it's all political. Like, he's not funding cancer research. He's not funding how to improve crops in, the Sahara Desert. 32 billion. So that is George Soros' website. He's the founder. He's the president. He's the guy who put in most of the money. He describes what he's doing. He gives huge chunks of money to Black Lives Matter, to the hard left-wing district attorneys. And now that we've shown you this, both from news reports and from his own website, which I encourage you to poke around in, let's watch that Newt Gingrich clip one more time in the light of what I've just shown you.
Right. Speaker Gingrich, I know you have a final thought for us.
Yeah, look, the number one problem in almost all these cities is George Soros elected left-wing, anti-police, pro-criminal district attorneys who refuse to keep people locked up. Just yesterday, they put somebody back on the street who's wanted for 2 different murders in New York City. You cannot solve this problem, and both Harris and Biden have talked very proudly about what they call progressive district attorneys. Progressive district attorneys are anti-police, pro-criminal, and overwhelmingly elected with George Soros' money, and they're a major cause of the violence we're seeing because they keep putting the violent criminals back on the street.
I'm not sure we need to bring George Soros into this.
I was going to say you get the last word, Speaker.
He paid for it. I mean, why can't we discuss the fact that millions of dollars he spent?
I agree with Melissa. George Soros doesn't need to be a part of this conversation.
Okay. So it's verboten.
All right. We're going to. Okay, we're going to move on. A historic day at the White House. We covered it from...
What on earth was that all about? Newt Gingrich wasn't even being animated or angry. He was just saying, this is the result of 10 years or 5 or 6 years of Soros calmly, methodically installing left-wing activists in the DA positions. And I just showed you that's exactly what Soros is doing. I mean, Newt Gingrich wasn't even on the attack. He was just saying, this is, if you're wondering why it's happening, this is why it's happening. I don't know what was worse when the two women said, we don't need to bring, when one of them said, we don't need to bring George Soros into this. Why? Because that's a news fact. It's not a red herring. It's not unconnected. Why would you tell someone not to bring it in when it actually is a central fact? But that other girl, the blonde girl whose name I don't know, and I'm calling her a girl, I should call her a young woman, but she really had the argument of a girl. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. We just took you through a bunch of news stories on George Soros' own website. Newt Gingrich, like I say, one of the smartest people you'll ever meet. You don't have to agree with him on anything, but Newt does his homework. He's a professor. No, he didn't. Could you play that white girl again there? No, he didn't. She didn't say it like that. But it was total value. You got a professor scholar saying George Soros has funded these progressive DAs and they have an anti-police agenda and he's been doing this for years. And so you have a professor saying here's all these things that are true and I just proved them to you. And then you have I'd like to get her name. No, he didn't.
We need to bring George Soros into this.
I was going to say you get the last word, Speaker.
He paid for it. I mean, why can't we discuss the fact that millions of dollars he spent?
I agree with Melissa. George Soros doesn't need to be a part of this conversation.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. That girl there. No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
So it's...
What is going on there? What is going on there? The most interesting thing about George Soros is that he doesn't hide these things. You could spend days going through his website. And, he uses code word. He says progressive agenda, democratizing. But, of course he's going to use that. He's not going to use harsh words to describe what he's doing. But he will describe what he's doing. You can look at individual grants. You can look at the countries he's involved. You can look at his stuff. I tell our team here when something feels a little conspiratorial, I said, the craziest facts in the world are out there, lying on the ground. Pick it up. You don't have to concoct something because the craziness is just sitting right in front of your face. I just showed you on Soros' own website that between what he's given and what he just bequested, it's over $30 billion. And it's all for these political... Oh, that's a conspiracy theory. No, that's what he is disclosing. Happily, proudly. He's got a God complex. The man, he said that again. We could probably find clips of him saying that he... there are clips of it. I've seen them myself. I don't know if you want to try and poke around for him on YouTube. I can't remember if he uses God complex or Messiah complex. I think it's a God complex. When you have that much money, I think he's the world's, like America's 7th richest man or something. I don't know how his fortune has gone up or down in the pandemic. But he doesn't just have a billion. He's in the tens of billions. Like probably 50 billion or something. Or maybe I'm confusing with Mike Bloomberg. But Soros is definitely out of the single-digit billions. He's in the double-digit billions. Well, we know that. He just gave 18 billion more to his Open Societies Foundation. When you have that much money, you must truly think you are God, because there's almost nothing you can't get other humans to do. Like King Canute. You cannot order the tides to stop. There's certain things that you can't order the sun to not rise. In the realm of physical nature, you are limited still. But in the realm of human nature, there's almost nothing and almost no one you can't buy. And you don't even have to lead with it. Others in your presence know that, and so they will become yes men. They will try to anticipate your every whim and give you that in advance in the hope that you will smile favorably on them. You do that, and you live that way. How could you not start to think you're a god and that you have the right to order the world as you see fit and to treat people like ants in an ant colony? Nothing more than something to be shoved away. The normal laws and rules don't apply to you. I don't know if you know this, but George Soros sued me personally back in, would that have been 2010? Because I wrote about him in the Toronto Sun. Toronto Sun didn't want to fight. They basically surrendered immediately. I had just started writing with the Toronto Sun then, so like literally my first month or so with them. So the Sun basically said, Ezra, we're apologizing and correcting and getting out of this. I called it like I saw it. George Soros was a Nazi collaborator. He was just a teenager when the Nazis rolled into Hungary. And his father told George, we're going to get through this. We're going to do whatever it takes to survive. So one of the things that George Soros did is he rode his bicycle and delivered the death notices to the Jews. He was a Jew himself, although an atheist Jew, an anti-Semitic Jew, if I may say. He and his father did not like being Jewish, and throughout his life, George Soros has been very anti-Jewish and anti-Israel, but he is an ethnic Jew. So when the Nazis rolled into Hungary at the very end of the war, Hungary was spared for the first 5 years of the war. When the Nazis rolled in, George Soros, I think he was 15 or so, something really young like that. Not a child of tender years, but not a fully independent man. He was a teenager. And so under his dad's instruction, he became an errand boy for the Nazis. And he literally delivered death notices, like come to the train station, and he would deliver these to the Jews, and some of them did. Most of them did. They went to their deaths. Later, George Soros' father told him to pass as a Gentile and go around with some Nazi-type expropriator seizing Jewish properties. And again, if you're a teenager, I'm not talking 17, 18, 19, but 14, 15, and your father says, we're going to die, but we have to live through this, so you do whatever it takes to survive. If that means turning in other Jews, you do it. If that means literally helping carry out the Nazi orders to seize and expropriate Jewish property, you do it, because we're going to survive. And there's a lot of ethical questions there, but I think we can agree, even if we despise George Soros and what he's done, I think you can agree that when you're 14 or 15 and you do what your father says to survive in a war, you can perhaps soften or withhold your judgment of a 14 or 15-year-old. But when that 14 or 15-year-old survives by turning in other Jews and becomes a man of 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, and looks back on his conduct in the passage of time, with the clarity of time, knowing that 6 million Jews were murdered by Nazis and that he collaborated in a way, perhaps not with the full conscience that he fully thought things through, he being 14 or 15 years old doing what his father said. But surely when he was 30, 40, 50, thinking back to how he survived and 6 million Jews didn't, surely he would have some pangs in his conscience. And so the most surprising thing happened. George Soros went on 60 Minutes, the leading investigative news show of the time on, I think that's CBS, I can't remember. And incredibly, this master of the universe, this God complex, this man who broke the Bank of England, this billionaire vulture capitalist, 60 Minutes asked him, you did things that would put anyone on a psychiatrist's couch. Do you ever have any regrets? And that answer, not what he did when he was 14 or 15, but the answer of what he thought when he was 50 was much more interesting. Do we have that video? Take a look.
Lots of people get shipped off to the death camps.
Right.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right. Yes.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. No.
No feeling of guilt?
No.
For example, that I'm Jewish, and here I am watching these people go, I could just as easily be there. I should be there. None of that.
There was no sense that I shouldn't be there because that was guilt.
Are you religious?
No.
Do you believe in God?
No.
Soros told us he believes God was created by man, not the other way around, which may be why he thinks he can smooth out the world's imperfections. When we went with him to Ukraine, he was treated like a visiting head of state and was received by the president. Then he was received by the prime minister and finally the central bank.
20% in cash.
They even allowed him to look at the books and asked him for advice. Lots of people want George Soros' advice.
Whether I or somebody else does whatever is happening in the markets, it really doesn't make any difference to the outcome. I don't feel guilty because I'm engaged in an amoral activity which is not meant to have anything to do with guilt.
Part of the reason he is so rich is that the Soros hedge funds operate offshore in the Netherlands Antilles to avoid scrutiny by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So even while Soros tells Congress and the Treasury that hedge funds must be regulated to stop the global crisis, he's avoiding the rules.
Why is it that Americans can't invest in the quantum fund? It's an offshore fund. Why is that?
Because the fund is not registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We are not
Licensed to do business in the United States.
That's right.
Because?
Because we are not registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Because we find it more convenient to operate without it.
So in some ways it's to escape regulation.
Yeah, that's right.
But you've been sitting here talking about the need for regulation.
Yes, and whatever regulations are imposed, we will obey. We already conform to everything.
One of your money manager told us that George really does think he's a god.
That last part there with him and Hillary was tacked on, but if you can find another clip, Justin, where he answers that question, one of your money managers says you think you're a god. That's how that conversation continues. Please do look for that if you can. But boy, did we see a lot there. My first instinct, that interview was, I believe, in 1998, so 22 years ago. Soros, I think, therefore, was 78. I think he's 90 now. My first reaction on seeing that is, I can't believe Steve Croft is still alive. I'm surprised he hasn't been Epsteined. My second thought was, he's completely amoral. He uses that word, doesn't he? He says, oh, there's no morality to what I do. If I didn't do it, someone else would. Oh, I want lots of regulation for Americans, but not for me. Are you crazy? No, I'm keeping my money offshore. Tax Americans, but I'm keeping my stuff offshore. And you heard him when Steve Croft asked him about being a Nazi collaborator. Oh, no, it's like a market. You know, if I didn't do it, someone else would. No, there's nothing immoral. I read one of his biographies. He's got a lot of biographies. And he said it was the most exciting time of his life, going around expropriating property from Jews. And that's the thing. When a guy's in his 70s and he looks back fondly on the Holocaust, fondly on how he escaped it, fondly on being a collaborator, fondly on how he expropriated money from Jews, and he says, no, never missed a moment of sleep, never had a pang of guilt, just like breaking the Bank of England, just like having his wealth offshore. It's amoral. That is the nature and character of the man who has spent more than anyone else, probably more than anyone else combined, in manipulating American politics. $38 billion he's given to the Open Societies Foundation, if I recall. Yeah. So why did the gals on Fox News tell Newt Gingrich to hush? Hush now. Don't mention George Soros. Really? Huh. All right. Well, you know what? Look at the time. It's 12:31. We're halfway through the show, and we haven't even done anything we were going to talk about. Let me go to the Super Chats. How's that? Pink Phoenix Nails, $1.49. Well, thank you very much. Sneaky Beaver, $10. Quebec Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Premier, I guess, just announced a crackdown in bars and restaurants this weekend and actively encouraging snitching on other people, and even has the guts to say it is a citizen duty to report non-conforming situations. Yes, we are certainly seeing the worst of humanity, the snitch instinct. I don't know if I told you this story before. I've told my friend Justin this story before. Someone stop me if I've said it before on TV. But I remember when I once met I think he was a colonel in the Israeli counterterrorism force, who was in charge, I can't remember if it was the West Bank or Gaza, but one of the territories. I think it was the West Bank. And he himself was a Jew of Arab descent. So he looked like an Arab, skin color-wise, like he didn't look like an Ashkenazi Jew. He was a Sephardic Jew. And he spoke Arabic. If I recall, I think he was from Yemen, this Jew. So he would go into the West Bank and pass as an Arab. Spoke Arab natively. Probably grew up speaking Arabic. Looked Arabic. So he would be in the West Bank, and he was running counterterrorism. And he said, and I'm certain I'm not giving away any confidences, he wouldn't have told me any confidences. It's hard to stop terrorism through technology alone. Because what if they're having a meeting with no cell phones in the room? What if they're not communicating by email or phone? What if they're just talking and there's no technology around? What if they're passing messages old-fashioned way? What if if they have a gun or a bomb? And so you can detect some terrorist plots through technology, but if it's just in a little Arab town 2 miles away from a Jewish town, and all that happens is somebody leaves the Arab town and walks for 20 minutes to the Jewish town and blows someone up, stabs someone, shoots someone, hits them with the car. How are you going to detect that? Well, what this Sephardi Jew, this Arab Jew in the Israeli counterterrorism force said, and if I recall, I think he said 90%, were people informing on each other, people snitching on each other, people turning each other in. And I thought to myself, and I asked, how can that be? Because it's not like the divisions in Canadian society that are usually shallow. I mean, really, what divides us from each other? The identity politics types are trying to divide us based on race. some trying to divide us based on sexual identity or feminism or whatever, but pretty much we're all on the same team, right? I mean, you can cheer for different sports teams. There's some rivalries between provinces, but we're generally harmonious, right? But in the Middle Eastern conflict, I mean, there's Jews and there's Muslims and Arabs. These are societies that have been against each other in some ways for centuries. How could someone who is a Muslim Arab turn in a fellow Muslim Arab from the same town to the enemy? How could they snitch, inform, rat out a terrorist plot to Israel? Meaning that the person they were ratting out would surely be arrested, jailed, maybe even killed in the arrest. How? Like it's one thing for someone to turn in someone if you're all in sort of the same group. But for someone to turn in a fellow Muslim or Arab to the Jews, what would motivate that? What would motivate that? Don't you think that's a good question? And the answer I was given was it's almost always a personal vengeance. He slept with my sister and dishonored her. I wanted to date that girl, but he did first. He insulted my father. It was always some pride and honor thing, often sexually, either involving the honor of a woman or homosexuality, which is looked down on harshly in most Muslim cultures, especially in the West Bank. So my friend, he's actually I call him my friend because I later got to meet this counterterrorism guy when he retired. I won't identify him, but we have become friends. In that first time I met him, he explained that it was almost always a vengeance, almost always a way to get even. That the ultimate way to end a feud with someone was to turn them in to the Israelis. Imagine how much you would have to hate someone to do that. Well, according to my friend who was the counter-terrorism boss in the West Bank back then, that's how 90% of them, they got their tips. How was he going to find out? And I have extended family who come from the former Soviet Union. That is, they came to the West recently. My own stock came to the West in 1903. But there are those who had to live through the Soviet Union. And I have friends who escaped from the former Soviet Union. By escaped, I mean they just left. And it's the same thing in that snitch culture. The snitch culture of the KGB. It was often driven by personal quarrels. Someone you just didn't like. Someone who just irritated you. Someone who was an eccentric. Eccentrics don't do well in authoritarian regimes. You know, there's this old British caricature of this slightly goofy Brit, right? Maybe wild hair, with a pipe, a little bit goofy, mannerisms, says funny things. It's sort of a British character, I think, mainly. Maybe I'm also thinking it would be like an inventor or a poet or someone who had a place in life to be a bit of an oddball and perhaps a bit of a genius. I even think of the late Roger Scruton, just how he came across. I think of traditional characters like Sherlock Holmes. I think of a lot of British personalities. The British eccentric was safe until this woke cancel culture came in so recently. You were allowed to be quirky as a Brit. America allows it too. But more and more, quirky, goofy, irritating, obnoxious, maybe it's just a psychological or psychiatric thing. Maybe they're on the spectrum a bit. Maybe they're Asperger's, a bit irritating. They lack some social norms. My friends from the former Soviet Union said that those people were often the ones reported to the KGB, not for being a security threat, not for being a democracy activist or a dissident, but just how do I get rid of this pest in my life? Tell the KGB they were engaging in some counter-revolutionary stuff. So my point about talking at great length about how Israel would get tips in the West Bank and the Soviet Union, and I know these both from talking to people who lived there, is both cases had nothing to do with high-minded morals. Both cases had to do with how do I screw my neighbor? How do I avenge or revenge my neighbor? How do I deal with something that's bothering me? I know. The ultimate way, I can't handle this problem in my life. I can't convince that girl to date me instead of him. I can't convince that guy to stop bugging me. I just hate the look of that guy. I hate the sound of his voice. I hate his mannerisms. I hate how he chews. I hate that stupid joke. I hate how he stutters. Like sometimes it was just a social norm, just a mannerism. In a polite and civil society, a peaceful society with a limited government, you deal with it. Or you ignore the person, you just deal with it. But in a totalitarian regime, you snitch. You snitch. That's the ultimate trump card. I'm telling the KGB about you. I'm telling the Shin Bet about you, the Shabak. I'm telling the Mossad about you. And now I see in your super chat, the Quebec is insisting on snitch culture. I tell you, it will be easier to do in Quebec than in the West Bank because you're not overcoming an ethnic solidarity. I think this is going to be terrible. I think, unfortunately, there is a strain of Canadians who will love the snitch culture. We mockingly call some of them Karens. They're scolds. It's one thing to be a scold, but to be a snitch is something else. A scold, you're using your personal capital to shame someone. There's a place for scolds in life, actually. I just don't think that scolding people over a mask or scolding people about a playground is appropriate. But a scold is one thing, a snitch is completely something else. A snitch doesn't deploy their own personal capital, doesn't use the weight of their own presence to try and make you conform to some norm. A scold doesn't say, whoa, that's not how we do things here. Sorry, that's a scold. A scold says, whoa, that's not how we do things here. Whoa, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's a scold. A scold is no, no, no. I'm telling you no, bad, bad. That's a scold. A snitch doesn't deploy that personal power. A snitch writes a secret note and then makes a secret phone call, types a secret email, fills out a secret phone. A snitch is lower than a scold because a snitch has no accountability. A snitch does not expose themselves to any consequences. A snitch does not publicly own their snitchery like a scold does. Oh, it's coming. I hear we have some breaking news. And what's the breaking news? The audiobook is up. Wow. Breaking right now. I'm just hearing this in my ear. This just happened right now. China virus. How Justin Trudeau's pro-communist ideology is putting Canadians in danger. You know why this is breaking news? Because Amazon sat on this for nearly 2 months. Well, finally. All right, well, thanks for the breaking news. I did not know that. Amazon delayed, came up with BS excuses. Finally, we hopped through all the hoops. Well, isn't that great? That's great. Thank you for the breaking news. Okay, I hear in my ear that Justin found the clip of Soros where he says he is not a god. It would be quite something if he said he was. Let's see the clip just to button up that Soros thing, and then I'm going to whip through these super chats because I've got so many I've got to get through. So let's watch the Soros thing just to tidy that up, and then I'm going to motor through the super chats.
Money manager told us that George really does think he's a god.
I mean, if you think that you're God and you go into financial markets, you're bound to come out broke. So the fact that I'm not broke shows that I don't believe that I'm God.
Welcome. All right, fair enough. I'm glad to have that answer because I've seen that question posed to him in a number of ways. Or maybe I just saw the allegation that his managers say George thinks he's a god. It would be... I hear Justin says in my ear that that there is a quote out there that he says he's godlike. I want to find it, though, before asserting it, because you just saw his deep humility. Oh, no, no, no. If you think you're a god, you never lose money. I haven't lost money. That's proof I'm not a god. I don't think I'm a god. I don't actually think that that's a logical answer that denies he thinks he's a god, or at least has godlike rights and powers to treat people like ants. Let's get back to the Super Chats. Oh, I got a lot to get through. Amanda Leho, thank you, $20, appreciate it. Veterans Voice Chris Semchuk, $14. Please take some time to remember Battle of Britain this Sunday for the 80th anniversary. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. You're right. You know, Nigel Farage has a great tweet a few days ago of him standing in front of some Spitfires. If you can find that one, it's just a tweet of him in front of a Spitfire, and I just thought, there's a guy who embodies the spirit of the Battle of Britain. Laird Kintyre, $2. Happy Friday, Rebels, from small town Eastern Ontario. Well, thank you very much, Laird. Wanda Granada, $3. Thank you. Lisa Proust, $2. Thank you to Justin for being so fast on the net. Yeah, Justin, he has the toughest job because, oh, there we go. Today is the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Britain. Was it being taught in schools across the country today? I hope so, but I doubt it. I like that smile. You know that if he were 20 years old back there in 1940, that he would have been flying a Spitfire and laughing it up and just that hail fellow. Well, that's, see, in his own way, he's a bit of an eccentric. I don't actually think he's eccentric, but he belongs in a Britain where you're allowed to. Actually, he dresses sometimes in over-the-top British stuff. I like him. And my God, is the United Kingdom on the wrong path these days with Boris Johnson, but we don't have time to get into that now. Great Informer, $5. Justin Trudeau believes that Sasquatch is a Yeti dressed as a Bigfoot. All right. Host Busters, $5. They are monitoring your response to their propaganda so they can fine-tune it. You know, that could well be true. I mean, I told you, we showed you that on our website, propagandaplan.com. Can you show that just for a sec? We have the full document, 15 pages long, of how the Canadian Armed Forces proposed to track Twitter that disagreed. Yeah, propaganda plans. So if there's a video by me, there's a video by, and that document there is a Canadian Armed Forces document about how they plan to monitor Twitter, monitor Canadians who disagree with Trudeau and Theresa Tam, and then have an information war. You can read this if you like. It's at propagandaplan.com. There's a section there where they talk about how they're going to scan tweets. I think it's the very next page. Yeah. Or one more page. Or is that the end of it? Go to the next page there. Harmful information response drill. Oh, the bottom right there. Right. Can you pump that up a tiny bit there? Oops. So this is how they do an analysis of a tweet. This is the Canadian Army. The source. Can you pump that up as a tiny bit bigger? Is it possible without screwing things up there? I.e. tweet, account owner, number of followers, and I'm just going to put my glasses on more. Probable location, maybe amplification of coordinated messaging, content, statement that, like, so you, and then audience, specific population. So they have this whole 5 steps, media, Twitter post, effectiveness. So they're analyzing your tweets. This is the Canadian Armed Forces. They're supposed to be fighting bad guys. But you're the bad guy now. Okay, let's get back to the Super Chats. Tarian, $5. George Soros spent $17 million on DA's campaigns across USA. Bill O'Reilly clip today explains in detail. Oh, I think it's much more than that if you add it up. I mean, we saw that he spent $2 million to take out Sheriff Joe Arpaio alone. Great Informer, $5. Just like J.P. Morgan at the turn of the century, Soros is a lieutenant in the Rothschild, Rockefeller, and Warburg globalist family New World Order. I think Soros has his own path and his own course. I'm sure he does deal with other billionaire bankers, but he has a very clear agenda of his own. And he spends more than I think every other political funder combined. 38 billion? You know, maybe in any given year, the Koch brothers spend 100 million. So Soros has spent 400 times as much. Lewis Talbot, £10. Hi, Ezra, for all of Canada's problems. At least it is an independent country. At least you don't have to deal with the EU trying to vassalize and split your country in two. Rather have Canada's problems. The UK is in deep trouble, I grant you that. Oh, they're still fighting over Brexit, aren't they? Great Informer, $5. Robert Mercer and family and allies are fighting the globalists and New World Order. They're not perfect, but if they lose the fight, we are screwed. You know, Robert Mercer was out, and his family's daughter, Rebecca, were some of the funders of Breitbart.com and some Trump funders. But I think Soros is 1,000 times bigger financially. And Soros has been at this for decades. It's very methodical. He has the Open Societies Foundations operating in 120 countries. It's thousands of staff doing it. It's not just Robert Mercer and his daughter Rebecca dabbling. It's a massive organization. Lisa Cruz, $2. Ezra, I want to have your brain. You know a lot. Well, we all try and learn what we can. You know, I don't have time to read books as much as I did before, but I find I'm reading more than ever. The hard part is to discern what to believe and what not to. There's unlimited content in the world from an unlimited bandwidth of people. How do you decide who you trust? Do you read things from sources you don't trust just to hear the other side of the story? How do you check your gut? It's dangerous sometimes to be self-taught because you can make one key mistake and choose the wrong path, and then everything from that path is rotten. I've seen that sometimes, people learning on their own on the internet, which I very much recommend. But what happens if you get a key, go this way or that way, and you make the wrong turn? You need someone to check with. That is why traditional university education was valuable, because you would do your readings and you would do your studies, and then there would be someone who's been down that road before and say, oh, you made this error, oh, watch out for that. Now these days, instead of teaching how to critically think and sharing experience, wisdom, and expertise, we have universities teaching people what to think, not how to think. So it's tough. How do you learn? How do you learn? Yorgi, $10. Hey, Ezra, who is the most fascinating person in Canadian politics you've seen in your lifetime? Canada doesn't seem to have characters anymore like Pierre Trudeau, Ralph Klein, or even René Lévesque. You know, I got to know Ralph Klein a little bit. I was at law school in Edmonton when he was the premier in Edmonton, and I enjoyed meeting him from time to time. I did meet René Lévesque just once when I was in grade 7, I think. No, grade 10. And he came to Calgary with a book. And my high school was across the street from the bookstore, and I went and I asked him about Western separatism. Isn't that funny? Who's a character in Canadian politics? We don't really do well with characters, do we? Quebec has some big characters. I mean, Lucien Bouchard was quite a character. Mulroney, a character in his own way, but really just oleaginous and a backslapper. British Columbia's had some real characters over the years. I don't know. Let me think some more about that before I give a resolute answer. Think some more about that. UG 2008, $5. Ezra, when will Rebel get rid of Facebook comment plugin? It still does allow me to post. I don't know. I'm not technically up to speed on that, and I know there is some censorship issues there. I think that's on Facebook's side. Pacific Eagle, $10. Thank you. Gabe Duguay, $5. George S. is a dirty little minion. Foot soldier for the central bankster gangsters. The true head of the snake. Love you, Ezra. Well, Soros is bigger than everyone combined, at least in political manipulation. That's not my opinion. That's the stats. Where did I get the stats? I just showed you where I got the stats, his own website. You know, in the last campaign, Hillary Clinton spent, what, almost $1 billion. and other PACs, super PACs, spent almost $1 billion, $2 billion. And let's say the media party were the equivalent of another $1 billion in free ads, so that's $3 billion for Hillary Clinton. Well, I just showed you from his own website that George Soros has put in $38 billion. That's bigger than everything else combined. Pacific Eagle, $5. When do you think JT will ask us to go to the trains? Well, I don't know if it'll be like that, but it'll start like this. Can you play the first clip you had selected, the no mask arrest? I don't think death trains are soon, but I think police being deputized to go in and just grab guys without masks, it'll look like this.
Are you serious? Are you seriously going to do this? This is embarrassing. School board meeting. And a parent's meeting.
They're part of the policy. So, if you want, you can talk to a few about it later or something like that. As of right now, they want you. Sir, I really don't want to.
I know you don't want to do it.
Okay.
I know you do not want to do it.
Yep.
I know this guy doesn't want to do it, but unfortunately you have to follow these fools' rules, right?
If it's part of their policy that you have to wear a
Yeah,
mask,
so
you
force me out.
You're really gonna do
You're
this,
going to
so-
make, yes, you're going to
Because at
have
that
to
point-
drag me out.
At that point, you could.
This is what you are doing.
At that point, you could.
You are sowing
additional charges.
discord within our communities at every level. It's disgusting. Do you harass your clients when they're at your restaurant to put on masks?
Sir,
Do you harass them?
Sir, we're not going to.
Do you?
At this point, you could be facing additional charges of obstruction if you don't.
Of what? I get it. I get it.
So then
I
you
get
can
it.
at least
I
come with
get
me.
it.
We'll figure it
You're
out.
gonna have to
Okay.
drag me out.
This is absurd. Completely
You
absurd.
know that, right?
All right, sir. We're going.
No, you literally.
This is an embarrassment to our school.
Don't do it, man. It's not
Read, you're fine.
Relax.
It ain't worth all of that, brother.
Come on, sir.
Read.
No.
Read, don't resist. Read, don't resist. Seriously, don't resist. Please. Read.
Let go of this.
You will have to tase me in front of all these people.
I really don't want to take.
Don't tase him. Read, don't.
And I want these people to video it while their cops of minority descent have to do this to everybody. Constantly putting you people in these positions.
He just wants to have a say in what's going on. Well, we pay.
Hey, yeah, how do you feel about that? A school is normally a place where you're all trying to be working together, collaborative, friendly, want to be a nice environment for the kids, you want to get along enough with your teachers, even if you want to keep an eye on them, make sure they're teaching. But imagine then, they were all socially distanced there, by the way. They were all 6 feet away from each other, so I'm not sure why they needed the mask also. Imagine sending in armed police to do that. I think that's about 5 minutes away here in Canada. And by the way, that's a lot less than what they're doing in the United Kingdom and Australia. It's almost 1 o'clock. I got to whip through these super chats, people. We spent half an hour talking about George Soros, which wasn't his birth name, of course. He was born George Schwartz. But his dad changed their name to Soros and made the family speak Esperanto, which is a man-made engineered language. It's not an organic language that evolved over the centuries and millennia. It's like a artificial language. What a freak. Ray W., 5 pounds. Why doesn't Israel grab Soros and put him in front of a war crimes court? What he did as a 14 or 15-year-old would not count as a war crime. There's no mental element. Mens rea, as they say in the law. Other crimes, other financial crimes, other white-collar crimes, I don't know about. I'm sure there's a reason he doesn't want to, in his quantum fund, be registered under the U.S. Securities Commission. I don't know if that's changed since 1998. Katrina Panova, 280. I love Rebel News. Thank you for all you do. Well, thank you, Katrina. John Singas, $2. Marie Harf, blonde on Fox Rig. Oh, right, Marie Harf. She was a spokesman. Okay, if that's who that was, I remember now. She was a spokesman for John Kerry, if I'm recalling. Is that right? Marie Harf? I just forgot who that was. Melissa something? Yeah, I don't know if that was Marie Harf, because I would be surprised Marie Harf would be on Fox, because that's used to be a spokesman for the Obama White House or something. So what's the name? Melissa Francis. Yeah, maybe just Google Melissa Francis so we could get a photo of her. Yeah, it's not Marie Harf. I know who Marie Harf is. I don't think that's who it is. Patriot Girl 1, $10. Blessings from America, Ezra. Well, thank you. Apple Mania Gaming, $15 Australian. G'day, mate. Melbourneian here. Was wondering if you were aware a premier was also seeking extra powers to arrest people for pre-crime because police predict an upsurge in youth crime after lockdowns. Yes, in fact, do we have a quick video on that, Justin? The new Australian rules? We do, in fact, have a video. Here, it's 2 minutes. We're going to play it, and then I'm going to whip through the rest of the Super Chats. Here's the new Aussie vid.
Temperature tests awaited politicians at Parliament. But the real heat came in question time.
When you continue to lie to the Parliament and the people of Victoria.
The opposition leader seized on the government's recent bungles.
That I will move that the Premier and the other Ministers of State for the State of Victoria no longer possess the confidence of this House.
Given Labor's majority, the no confidence motion is not a serious threat, but this might be.
And to provide for new temporary modifications to the law of Victoria.
Victoria's strict lockdown enforcement has already made international headlines.
You can show me your search warrant before you go through my house.
Now, a new law would give police the power to preemptively detain anyone with COVID or their close contacts, even if they haven't broken the law. All that's required is that the officer thinks they might breach restrictions in the future.
These changes could make police both judge and jailer.
What's more, the Health Department could empower non-police like PSOs or WorkSafe inspectors to preemptively detain citizens too.
Who knows, they could appoint security guards they had running hotel quarantine.
There's no limit on detention time, no legislated oversight and no clear avenue for appeal. Liberty Victoria says there's little, if any, evidence has been put forward which justifies these powers. Certainly, our case numbers don't. Victoria recorded 28 today, the lowest in nearly 3 months. But the key 14-day average is now well below 50. The modelling Daniel Andrews used said metropolitan Melbourne's new case average should have been around 64 by now. But despite the fact that we've already fallen below that threshold to ease restrictions, Daniel Andrews is refusing to ease restrictions.
We're getting into the tail of the infection and strategy is to jump on the tail.
Even if it's smashing the economy. Simon Love for 10 News for...
Sounds like the media party is slowly waking up to the martial law in the state of Victoria. By the way, I'm sure you know we have a new journalist on our team. Avi Yamini is his name. He joined us just a week or so ago, based in Melbourne, which is the main city of the Australian state of Victoria, which you saw there. Can we play just, I know it's 1:04, but I'm happy to run a few minutes later. Can you play just the opening moments? Actually, play the Stand With Avi. Let's start with the standwithavi.com website. We just played the whole video yesterday. I wouldn't mind playing just the 10 seconds of his arrest because it shows, and I think Canada is just not far behind this. So I just want to show his arrest just to remind people, and I know most people who are watching have in fact seen it. Okay, don't worry about it. You know, let's. Why don't I keep motoring on through the super chats and let me know if you can if you got it. So my answer to Apple Mania Gaming is that we are aware of it, and we've got the key freedom journalist in your city on our team now. And we filed a lawsuit against Victoria State Police just this week. You can find out more at standwithavi.com. We're going to sue the bad guys there. And it's sort of crazy that a Canadian-based media company has to do it, but we fight for freedom every day. Hostbusters, $5. Everyone say hi to the pastor and their clergy watching us. We should go to the Masonic temples and give them their eviction notices. Viking Insane, $2. How long before the tyranny in Australia comes to Canada? Well, a lot of that depends on how we conduct ourselves, don't you think? Sounds like Quebec is going full snitch society. Hillary Waugh, $2. Trump cites 1776 article for curriculum in school. I really like that because, of course, you start teaching people to hate their own countries in school. That you don't teach people the freedom, culture, and history of our countries. You're going to lose in 20 years. Soros knows that. Vito Anthony D, $5. Why is it about biology with respects to Darwinism taught in schools, but not with respects to transgenderism? Yeah, anytime I hear a liberal say, science-based policy, I'd say, how many genders are there, mate? How many genders? Lisa Proust, $2. Amazing Quebec character is Alexis Cossette-Trudel. Okay, well, I'll have to Google that person because I don't think I know who that is offhand. I'm just going to type that into my Google here. Filmmaker. Okay, I see. Jacques Cossette-Trudel. That's not who we're talking about. Alexis Cossette-Trudel. I'll have to find that later. I just don't have time to do it right now while I'm on live telly. Let's keep going. Fraser McBurney, $12. Don't forget to attend our Festival of Life, Hugs Over Masks, gathering at Bayfront Park in Hamilton, noon on Sunday, September 20th. Hot coffee, donuts, and fun. Like-minded people are welcome. That does sound like fun. Max Vision Remote View class, $2. Thank you. Alan Elliott, $5. Thank you. Can anyone understand what the woman in the background is yelling in the Avi arrest video? I got to ask Avi that because I think she says the word Avi. She's shouting, isn't she? Oh, here, let's take a listen.
Quite peaceful until...
It's not here for any purpose of reason. When he's under arrest. But this guy here is going to be placed under arrest right now. Well, I'm under arrest.
I'm media. I am media. I'm media. I've got my permit in my pocket. My permit is in my...
Yeah, I did hear that woman shouting. I thought I heard her say Avi. I'll have to ask Avi who that was, if he knew her, if she was talking to him or whatever. That scene there, I don't think it's imminent in Canada right now, but I think we could see it, especially as the dissonance between the fact that the death toll, the hospitalization rate is near zero, but the politicians' demands for a panic lifestyle are increasing. That difference, that cognitive dissonance, will collapse as the contradictions are exaggerated, as they become different and different, as things in real life are more and more normal, but politicians get crazier and crazier. Something's going to snap. We have to be ready. We have to be ready legally. That's the main way, I think. Max Vision Remote, I read that one already. Margaret Kazar, $3. Thank you. Kurt Perner, $2. Is Christy Freeland related to George Soros? Not related, but I understand. I know that she's met him. There's a key photo of them meeting at Davos. I understand that she was actually set to be his biographer of yet another biography, but then, of course, she became an MP. I'm pretty sure she's interviewed him. Oh, yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah, she's in that circle. She's absolutely in that circle. And I'm certain that they've been in touch many times when she's been in cabinet, but they're smarter than to make it access to information-able. Well, my friends, it's 1:09. We have covered most of the videos I wanted to. Had a big discussion about George Soros. Maybe I can leave you with Bill Barr. We'll come back. Do we have a dog video today also? Okay, so look at this video of Bill Barr. I think he's dead right. What do you think? Take a look.
Putting a national lockdown, stay-at-home orders is like house arrest. It's other than slavery, which was a different kind of restraint. This is the greatest intrusion on civil liberties in American history.
It's obviously true. Don't go to work. Don't go to school. Don't go to the hospital unless you have the virus. Everything else, you're not allowed to go to the hospital. Don't go to church. Don't leave your house. Curfews. Wear a mask whether you want to or not, whether there's science behind it or not. That is unprecedented. The slavery exception in the United States being the case. We didn't have slavery in Canada. This is unprecedented for Canada. And look at people rolling over. Look at people getting into the spirit of it, being so excited about being snitches. I tell you, scolds are bad enough. You can handle a scold. You can out-scold them. Snitches, though? A couple more super chats really quickly. Vito Anthony, $2. 3 cheers for Barbados. Nah, I believe in Queen Elizabeth. I don't like Prince Andrew, but I like Queen Elizabeth. Gabe Duguay, $5. The plandemic, Antifa, BLM is all about the election, and all the corrupt leftist parties in all countries are all actors in the fake movie Trump 2020. I think I understand you, and I think that there is some truth to it. The narrative of chaos is part of the goal to disrupt Trump. And certainly, they're planning not to accept the result if Trump wins. That's crystal clear. Lisa Proust, Ezra, I'll send you a video on Twitter of Alexis. All right, I'll take a look. It's 1:11. Thank you for joining me today. I got a bit off topic there for a bit, but I think it was fine. I wanted to prove to you that George Soros is the world's largest political financier. And I wanted to prove it to you in his own words, and I think I did. Just go to his website. Oh, we're not going to talk about that. We can't talk about that. It's not true, nuh-uh. Yeah, it is true. Why are you saying it's not true when Soros himself not only says it's true, he boasts $38 billion. I don't think in the history of the world anyone's ever made such a political gift, ever. I don't think so. Oh, we can't talk about that. Why? Why can't you talk about that? Well, my friends, we'll talk about it. It's 1:12 p.m. I'm going to say goodbye to you now. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend. And to make you feel 17% better, we have a dog video. I have not seen this dog video before. Justin has curated it. So we'll all watch it together for the first time. I'll say goodbye to you now. Here's the dog video.